The fifth round of the 2014 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series is just over 1 hour away. And with it, we welcome you to episode 5 of RaceSpotTV presents WCS Spotlight. Will Vincent, along with Scott Woodward and Jake Cameron, as we recap everything that happened 2 weeks ago at Road America, as well as looking forward to that trip down under to the ultra-fast, ultra-crazy Phillip Island racetrack. Now, Scott, I'm going to come to you first. Let's not forget the last time we were on air on RaceSpotTV, we made WCS history. We've had 4 drivers winning the first 4 races of the 2014 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series in what clearly has to now be defined as the most competitive season in series history.
Oh, without a doubt, well, it's been a fantastic run so far, of course, and the stars of the show so far undoubtedly been Glacier Racing. It's wins apiece for Alexei Usiakola and Ollie Picala, but don't forget also Hugo Luis and Gregor Hülse also have one as well. As you said, 4 different winners in the first 4 races. Never happened before in iRacing WCS history. We really are on a season record-breaking history already. When it comes to Phillip Island, possibly with a chance, maybe it could be 5 out of 5. Who knows? Depends if the likes of Hugo Luis, Gregor Hülse, or the Glacier Racing boys can indeed take a second victory of the season. Either way, it's going to be fantastic, but we saw some great racing between the 4 of them at Road America. Fingers crossed it continues this afternoon.
And that's the crazy thing about this season as well. There are 7, maybe even 8 drivers who have the possibility to win races this season. Of course, you've got Atsi Kirchhoff running a part-time schedule. When he turns up to race, never count him out. You've got the likes of Enzo Benito also for that Team Redline car. Martin Kroenke over in the 3D Motorsports camp. Then you've got, for example, people like Rico Adatalo, who's been really good before in the WCS. And then over in the INEX camp, possibly also Jake Sturgis, who's still looking to become the first driver to win both the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series powered by iRacing.com and also the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. However, we'll go back 2 weeks, and at the start of that race, Scott, it looks as though it was going to be 3D Motorsports Day, and it took a while for Glacier Racing to get their act together and get into the race, but we found out afterwards, actually, all of these drivers were driving kind of conservatively in that first stint because they each wanted to try and make that fuel number so then they can go a lap later than all of their competition.
Yeah, it only came to when we got around a pit stop, so the thing starts to really shake out, and it was some fantastic pit work from Glacier Racing to manage to get both Ollie Picala and also Alexei Usiakola out ahead of Hugo Luis. The key turning point in the race was when Hugo Luis, we believe he took on some extra fuel as an accident by accident, and that's the reason why he was longer in his pit box, and that allowed Ollie Picala to jump him in the pit stops. And of course, let's not forget also, we had that unbelievable outside pass, one of the best passes I've ever seen in sim racing, outside of turn 1 by Alexei Usiakola on Hugo Luis. That was just simply mind-blowing to watch and experience. And also the fact that, Gregor Hülse also came through to make it a triple fin, 3 fins on the podium. The first time also that's ever happened in iRacing WCS history. So Hugo Luis, even though he started on pole and dominated the first part of the race, even though Alexei Usiakola came through and got under his rear wing, he ended up as the man who lost out the most. He lost out from pole position effectively after that first stint, and then he lost the lead in the pits. So effectively, he's got some catching up to do. He has won here at Phillip Island before in 2012, but again, he still leads the championship. But he's going to hope he gets his second win this afternoon to try and keep that momentum going forwards into the rest of the season.
And Jake, we'll come back to that pass, because there was 2 passes going on simultaneously on the racetrack. There was Ollie Picala, who was making a pass over Gregor Hülse in what was a battle for the 3rd position, but ahead, possibly the pass of the season, that one between Alexei Usiakola on the outside of Hugo Luis down into turn 1. And when I had a look back at the replays after the race, I was shocked at just how close he was to being on the grass as he was working himself on the outside of the racetrack.
Yeah, definitely that was got to be the pass of the season so far. But I was actually watching the battle for the 3rd position with Bakara and Hülse, and it looked like he had a really good run on him, and he made the pass there. But then suddenly I just hear you two go off on one about this pass, and I have to watch it back. And as you say, when I watched it at the end of the race as well, he was on the edges of the car, edges of the limit, and he made it stick. He said to us as well after the race, when we asked him, how did you make it work? And he said, I just put it in there and I hoped and he wished that it would stick, and he said he was drifting and he just held it, and good on him. He made a brilliant move.
And what makes that move so much more special is we'd seen other drivers on the outside line going to turn number 1. They just couldn't hold their car at all. You couldn't defend a position on the outside into turn 1 that entire race. Yet here we have, the Finnish sensation that is Alexei Usiakola. And I think, Jake, what he did there is he made a statement. Because, of course, he made a statement himself winning the previous round at Suzuka. But it was a race where he didn't really have to overtake people. This was him showing to the world, I can race with the best, I can pass the best, and I can do it in my own unique style.
Yeah, obviously his race the week before at Spa, he was out in front and he didn't have to make any passes. But the 2 weeks ago at Road America, he was the one that was putting his car to the edges of the limit. He was passing every driver that he possibly could in that top 5. When he started further down the grid from his qualifying. But he's definitely made a statement this season in this Grand Prix series, and I reckon he's going to keep going.
Now, the interesting thing is, though, Scott, when you have a look at the championship, Hugo Luis did come out of Road America with the championship lead after finishing off the podium for the first time this season. Oli Picard, Gregor Hutu, they have both had issues so far this season. They were both, of course, involved in that now infamous clock smash moment at Interlagos. And then, of course, Hutu was off the podium at Suzuka to go with that. Oli Picardo right now is sat in second place. But Jake Sturgios, he's kind of been really quiet this season. And he's running right now in that 4th position. And Martin Patila in 5th spot right now. And Jake Sturgios is, he's one of those 3, maybe 4 guys who still has an opportunity to win a race this season. And you can never discount that lead Inex Racing driver.
You really can't. The thing with, of course, these guys is fourth place. I mean, he is always thereabouts, and he's scored some very consistent points finishes in the first 4 races, which is why he's one of only 5 drivers to break into treble figures in terms of points. So I think Jake certainly possibly has the potential to at least get himself a podium this season, provided that the others are either at least the Glacier Racing guys fall into troubles and don't exactly either find a trick with the setup or just don't seem to be finding the track conditions to their liking. I think Jake Sturgis definitely has got a chance to at least get himself onto the rostrum at least once. Maybe get a victory if he finds himself on particularly good form coming into a race weekend. One driver that's really surprised me, though, is Marty Piatella. To be honest, we haven't really spoken too much about him this season, yet he's been very, again, like Sturgis, quietly but very consistently scoring those important points finishes, and he does find himself in 5th position of the championship on 100 points ahead of drivers like Alexei Usiakola, who, remember, has won a race this season at Suzuka, Martin Kroenke, Andre Butcher, Enzo Benito, Ilkka Hapala. These kind of top drivers in there. Also other drivers like Tommy Nilsson, Jerry Booterloop. He's ahead of all of them, and yet we haven't really spoken about him, to be fair. He's been the very quiet, almost silent assassin where he's been up there in the scoring the points. He's up there in the top 5. Haven't spoken about him. Could be a dark horse the rest of the season. Never count up those. It's always the quiet ones you have to watch out for. And yeah, Marty's definitely put himself in the shop window there.
He is indeed, and of course he is the only Finnish driver who is in the 3ID Motorsports camp. The majority of the Finnish drivers are either on Redline or, of course, on Glacier Racing. The driver that really stands out for me in that top 10, moving down a little bit though, is Isaac Price. Rookie into the series, and right now he's got 82 points, and he's involved in a really interesting battle with Andre Butcher, Martin Kroenke ahead of him, but then also Ilkka Hapala, Enzo Benito behind him. And Scott, right now you have to say Isaac is doing a great job in the other Inex Racing car, and I think that he's really learning well from the de facto #1 driver in that team, Jake.
Yeah, definitely. I think he is. He's learning a lot. He's come a long way since his early days in LFS, where I've raced against him. I've always thought he was a good driver, but definitely I think making that move into Inex has really, really benefited him. He's not only now got the stability of setups, but he also has the more experienced people that can help him and guide him through and give him them little techniques that maybe an inexperienced driver in this series may need.
And then towards the end of the top 10 is Ilka Hapala. And one of the things that we talked about, well, myself and Nick, about a month ago, Scott, is that the smaller teams seem to be struggling a little bit more this year. And we made the case over the Radical Steel Series team, who arguably were always that kind of team who were towards the rear end of the top 10. Good points finishes, which would then translate into them being towards the rear of the top 10, possibly, you know, between 10th and 15th in the championship. This season, because Glacier Racing are so strong, because Inex Racing are good again, because Redline is so strong, and because 3D Motorsports are having collectively their best season in arguably 3 years, it means that the smaller teams, some of the less established drivers, are really outside the top 10. You look at Yuhu Abe, for example, in that running racing car. You got Alex Simpson in the Apex Racing car. He's in 13th place right now. Then you have to go down to 15th to see the first Twister Racing driver, 16th to see the first Radicals driver.
I think it's a combination of with some of the bigger teams, there's strength in numbers. It's coupled with the natural skill that they have in terms of setup, whether it's or just raw speed, and also the fact that it's experience levels as well. I mean, obviously, when you look at drive with teams like Glacier Racing, Ollie Picala might not necessarily be the most experienced, but he does have raw pace. Alexei Siakola, also quite experienced as well, has also come up through the Pro Road Racing Series, and he's up there and he's showing his raw pace and also his talent for setup, which he's passing on to Ollie as well. Of course, we know exactly what Redline can do. We know what 3D Motorsports can do. So the smaller teams, it may seem like a bit of an uphill struggle, but they may find when you come to the midpoint of the season, they may come to circuits where one or two of their drivers may find that they do prefer how the circuit drives and fits to the car. And of course, remember, we've got this brand new, I guess we're going to talk about it a little bit more in very soon for the rest of the show. Of course, we've had the new update to iRacing this week, which means we've got different set changes to certain areas of the car, which makes it a little bit easier to drive. So who knows, from this race onwards, it could make all the difference for some of these smaller teams who have maybe had a bit of difficulty finding the trick with the setup, or just getting used to the car and getting into a rhythm on a race weekend. Maybe with these extra little changes that we've had, it could help make the difference. So we could even get even more potential contenders for top 5 finishes or even podiums going forwards, and it could really make this even more of a competitive season going forwards.
We'll talk about the changes to the Williams FW31 in just a couple of moments' time, because, of course, as well as the top 5 drivers, we always like to have a look at that battle for P25. For those of you who are new to WCS.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, the top 25 drivers will keep their WCS license for the following year. Drivers outside the top 25, well, they've got to run in the 2014 iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing. Now, right now, the battle for P25, you've got Yunan Rumi in 23rd with 33 points, Michelle Mancusi with 32 points in 24th, Robin Friscops with 31 points in 25th. Then you go outside, and you got Dion Verges in 26th with 30 points, and then you got Christian Laurent and Kazuki Omishima both with 28 points right now. But then you've got some surprising names outside the top 25, Jake. People like David Acorp, people like Yunus Nakurian, people like Jason Lover and Marcus Carton really stand out for me. And then you've also got Alexia Loma, Stephen Michaels, Rico Alatale. Now, of course, Stephen Michaels has had a horrible season so far, been involved in incidents not always of his own doing, and that Twister Racing driver, who last year was battling to be in the top 10, right now is sat in 40th position in the championship.
Yeah, it's not been one of his strongest seasons so far. He's not shown that burst of pace that he had last season. Whether he's got some troubles, we don't know. But he could just be taking it slow at the moment. You never know. He could kick on in the rest of the later of the season and hopefully push for that top 25 to hold his license. But another person I'm quite surprised about being down there as well is Simon Cattell, another Inex Racing guy. I thought he would be more impressive this season. As you say, also Jason Lovett there. It's not really been their season, has it?
Inex have been struggling in some ways, and of course we talked about the positive bits with Jake, and actually Jake's got a bit of an advantage this week because the NASCAR Peak Hands-Free Series powered by iRacing.com race at Richmond was postponed to later in the season. So rather than running double duty, running NASCAR on Tuesday nights and having to run on Saturdays in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series, Jake's got the opportunity to, do a bit more testing and focus on one car.